It is the year 2025. A once proud world has been reduced to ruin and despair.
I gave people all the stuff they really needed. Social security checks, utility bills, TV guide.
I want a TV guidance counselor. TV guidance counselor. Staying up to watch all night, and everything's gonna be alright with my TV guidance counselor.
Hey everybody, welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. It's Ken Reed, your TV Guidance Counselor, and we made it through an entire year somehow. Oh, what a terrible year. I assume it was terrible for everybody, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I hope you had a better year than I did, and I know people have had much worse years than I did. So, so this is the annual tradition, this episode for New Year's. I kind of look back at the year, go through sort of week by week. You get kind of a director's commentary about each and every episode. I answer some questions from you guys, the listeners, and it's fun. So first of all, I want to thank you guys again for sticking around, listening, being patrons. It's very consistent. I somehow manage to not lose listeners every year. I don't gain a ton, but you guys are here week in and week out and have been for 12 years. I started this show when I was 33. I'm 45 now. A lot has happened. And this episode, although I think it's 721 on your feed, is actually episode 769. 69, nice. 69, no, not that nice. Not that fun. Anyway, that is the episode 769. So I have no plans to slow down anytime soon. This year has been a little bit more challenging getting episodes out on time, but I still haven't missed a week. So that's pretty good as well. Just to put it in perspective, and I'll get to the reasons why later in the episode. Normally, I have at least a month's worth of episodes in the can, in the queue, edited and ready to go. So like at this time last year when I recorded this episode, I think I had episodes through mid-February. Like if I had died that day, the episodes would have come out. Lately, I've been doing these episodes like 2 to 3 days before you listen to them. So I often record the interview before, obviously, but it takes me a while to edit them and to do the voicing. So like next week's episode, I haven't even started editing yet. So it's cutting a little close for me, but that's kind of what I've had to do this year. Also, I want to address we had a lot of deaths this year, and I'll get to them as they come around. But man, oh man, Rob Reiner is a big one, and that's really hitting me hard, and I assume everyone hard. Also, I've had at least 10 women I know of approximately our age group be like, my dad looks and speaks exactly like Rob Reiner. So that seems to be a pretty consistent thing with a lot of people I know for some reason. But what a horrific thing. And I never met the man, but I know a lot of people who worked closely with him and met him. And he's one of the people I've never heard a single bad thing about. And that's a tough one. And when you look at his filmography, there not a single movie on that list, maybe North, which you should revisit, is anything but an all-time classic. Like every single one of his movies are somebody's favorite movie, and I don't think he repeated himself. One of the most diverse filmographies I've ever seen, and a guy who came from television in more ways than one. His dad was the originator of your show of shows, Dick Van Dyke Show. That's just a big loss. But anyway, on to the show. This year, it was tough. I'm not going to lie. I did not think we'd have a second Trump administration, and it's worse than I thought it would be. And it has made things difficult. Everything going on has made it difficult to just be funny. But I have enjoyed the chats I've had this year. And I've had some of my favorite chats I've ever had on the show this year. It is a strange year in that this is we're going into year 13 of the show. 2026 will be year 13. So we've done 12 full years as of February. Also, side note, I've mentioned in the last few episodes, I will be doing a 2016 year in review in February as the 10th anniversary of 2016. So we started these year in reviews in 2018, maybe 2019, I have to check. So 15, 16, 17, 18 did not have year in reviews. So now I'm going to do them 10 years in the rears, which is kind of a different, very different exercise. So I'll be looking at 2016. So if you have questions about that year, but that's what we'll be doing next month. But anyway, year 13 of the show, the first 6 years of the show were 98% in person. I went to New York. People came to Boston. I went to LA in a different vibe. Did a few remote shows, but then obviously the pandemic changed things. And now I have 6 years of remote shows. So it's sort of two different eras and a different vibe. It's very weird. It's very difficult to put that genie back in the lamp of, it's hard to justify doing episodes in person now with guests. In the past, and my guest next week, we talk about this. He did a David Letterman podcast for years and interviewed like 400 people, amazing, crazy, big names. But in the early days of my show and his show, and before everybody had a podcast, we would contact people, very famous people, and they'd be like, yeah, come on over my house. And it's not the same now. Just things are different. It's hard when you can do it from your home and most people have a good setup. It's very difficult to really justify why they would need to come see you in person, as much as I love meeting people and getting to hang out. So who knows? But I've managed to do a few episodes in person every year since then. So there was not a completely remote year until this year. This year was the first year where I didn't do a single in-person episode. Or any extra episodes. I don't think we'll look as we go through the year here, but it's strange. I didn't really do any cons. That's usually when I do some in-person episodes. Didn't go out with people who were doing shows in the city very much. So it was a completely remote year, but I don't think it was a bad year at all when I look at the episodes that we have. So let's start off. January 1st was our 2024 year in review. You can go back, you can listen to that one. January 8th was Dan Does, episode 670. Dan is a new friend of mine. I stumbled upon his YouTube channel due to the algorithm. Incredibly funny guy, really good dude. He and I often have movie dates. Not as often now. I need to get back on that train, but we'll watch a movie together on Plex, a horror movie. It's very fun. I've really enjoyed those. Dan's just a good dude. If you have not watched his YouTube channel, absolutely watch his YouTube channel. That was also the week I think that Jimmy Carter died, which was strange. The next week was Amy Stock, and Amy was so cool, very smart, such a cool guest to have. We talked about her entire career. She was on Star Search. She played Bill's mom. Bill and Ted is in summer school. Speaking of Rob Reiner, Carl Reiner directed that. She had a great story about being directed by Carl Reiner that I really enjoyed. Really fun episode. That was very, very good. The third episode fourth, I guess, episode of January 2025 was Sandra Chilwaska. That was a very fun episode as well. I have to say, I don't have a very strong memory of that episode. I'm trying to remember, when we recorded that. So I'm going to look back actually when I recorded with her, because as I said earlier, I record stuff way in advance. And that Sandra episode, I actually recorded, let's see, on November 25th, 2024. So I was a whole month and a half, 2 months before it came out, almost. And, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. I'd like to, but not anymore. Just don't have the time. The last episode of January was Alan Strickland Williams. Very fun episode. I really loved catching up with him. Super funny guy. Again, it's the show. I say this often, but it's a nice excuse to catch up with people who I know from stand-up or music or other places that I don't get to speak to as often as I'd like, and kind of sit down and just catch up, which is nice. It's sort of a nice little catch up. On to February 2025, which was the 11th anniversary month of the show. On the first week, I had Gregory Lulay on. That was a very fun episode. Some of these people, you may not know their names, as sort of the fame level may not be as big as they were before, but they're very interesting people. I tried to really mix it up with like authors and comics, showrunners and that kind of stuff this year. So I really get in depth with a bunch of stuff, which was very fun. Also in February, I did my first stand-up shows of the year. I was out with Todd Barry. February 5th, 6th, 7th, we were out in, I believe, let me double check here. Let's see where this was. Uncle Calendar's great. Yeah, we were in New York. I was in Albany and I was in Syracuse, New York. So I saw a few of you out there. We did the Funny Bones, which I had never done before. They were like a chain of comedy clubs that are in malls, in dead malls. I'm not blaming the Funny Bone for the malls being dead, but they're certainly dead. And that part of the country, upstate New York, in February is pretty grim. My God, you people who live out there, hats off to you, because I thought New England was grim. Ooh, wow. And then you Canadians, man alive. But it was very, very gray and cold. But the shows were fun. I had my depression beard in full effect. Also this year, I think I've had a depression beard for 6 months. It might be the longest depression beard. But it's not consecutive. It was like the first 3 months of 2025, and I've had it the last 3 months of 2025. Probably going to get rid of it. Let me know what you think about the depression beard. Oh, there's Pete. He's yelling at apparently nothing, as he does. Pete is 13 years old now. That's that bums me out. He's slowing down. He's a good dude though. Pete's a good dude. So then we did the 2015 year interview on the week of the 12th of February. That, as I mentioned earlier, that's when we looked back at the second year of the show. Kind of blew my mind because that was such a huge year. And when I looked at 2016 too, the sort of names that I managed to speak to, or the people I think of when someone asked me about the show and I mentioned names of people who are famous that I probably had no business talking to, they all kind of come from those first 2 years, which is kind of fascinating because I cannot believe it's been 13 years. And the last 5 years have flown by, for better or worse. But I just can't believe I've been doing the show remote for 5 years. But anyway, so that was my year in review. Also that week, in my personal life, I started interviewing for a new job. I actually got sort of headhunted, and I had been at my previous job for 19 years. So I work in healthcare and Medicaid. I like it. It's, pays the bills. And certainly this year it was much needed. But it also is something where I'm like, if I have to work in order to live, I want to do something that's at least helpful for people. So sort of working in the advocacy area of Medicaid is very helpful to me. For those of you who aren't in the U.S., Medicaid is essentially kind of our NHS, or our sort of governmental health care for the most that need. And I'd been at this place for 19 years, and a new healthcare company kind of recruited me, which was very exciting. And so I started interviewing that week. So that started taking up quite a bit of time and was a big change for me. So I'm such a creature of habit that I need sort of schedules, and I do the same thing at the same times. And this year was very much sort of anarchy with that stuff. So that's sort of another reason why things have been difficult. But regardless, I started interviewing that week. So then the week of the 19th, Christine Little, very funny comedian, had a comedy special out. Really enjoyed talking to her. That was a really fun episode. And then I had the return of Matt Knudsen. This was Matt, who had done an in-person episode 10 years before that, who then did this episode about his special. And Matt's just such a good dude. We talk about hunks, usual stuff, hunks. Then we move on to March. Now this month, kind of everything changed to a degree that month. I forget, did Lynn Stewart die in 2025, Miss Yvonne? But I think she died around this time, which was very shocking. She was an older lady, but anytime these people who we grew up with watching pass away, it's a super reminder of time. And I will tell you, turning 45, I feel like I've aged 40 years. And it was so strange to go back and revisit her episode because she's such a sweet lady. And when someone who I've had on the show passes away, I like to try and go back and do a little minute clip or something of a highlight as just like a tribute to them, something about showcasing their career and my memory of them, my personal experience with them, and the fact that they were nice enough to sit down and talk to dumb me. And she was one of those people, just an absolute sweetheart. And we've lost almost everybody from Pee-wee's Playhouse at this point, which is insane. And also that month, or the month after that, March, I think we lost a good friend of mine, Ryan Shores, who'd been on the show ages and ages ago, a very good comedian, funny guy. I'd been on his podcast several times. He'd stayed at my house, was a good dude, and he died, which was shocking and sad. And I had been in touch with him the week before, which is always strange. So yeah, a lot of death this year. So I don't know what you've been going through, but that's kind of one of the things that is sort of hanging over me this year. But episodes went on, and March 2025, I had Mia Follick on the show. It was a very good musician, put out a new record that I really loved. She was a very interesting person. She's still touring a lot. I think if she's coming to your town, you should go see her. She is very, very good. Then I had two old friends on, one of whom had not done the show before, and one who had done the show, I think, twice before, if I'm thinking correctly. But Jenny Chalikian was on the show, who was a first-time person, but is an old Boston comic friend, and Aaron Judge, who had been on the show previously. And this episode was interesting because we actually recorded it in two different sessions, which I edited together in one session, and I think I told the group after that it was two different sessions. But during the first session, which was in January, Larry, the smallest dog, ate a Christmas bulb, like a I don't know what you call it, but it's what's the word? It's in the garlic family. They're highly poisonous to dogs, so we had to rush him to the hospital. He was fine, but I had to cut the episode short, and then we came back in later. A lot of dog illness this year. They're all three guys are still with me, and they're all good. But that same week that Jenny and Aaron's episode came out, because they put out an album together. They host a great show at the Rip Bodice, and they did a live album there. But that same week, Ted broke his ears, which sounds kind of silly. He's a poodle dog. He's got big floppy ears, and they can occasionally like break the blood vessels in their ears. They were super swollen. He was in a lot of pain, so I had to take him to the vet. They fixed him up. It took a few weeks. He had to wear like a babushka on his head so he couldn't shake his ears. He looked very cute, but the poor guy was miserable. I just felt so bad for him. So that was sort of all going on in March. Also, I was on WBUR. I used to be on, 3 years ago, I was on almost twice a month with Bethany Van Delft. They got rid of the Radio Boston show. I was on the last episode, I believe. But a place called Twin Donut in Allston, Mass. Closed that had been there forever. And so I'm the go-to place closed in New England guy. So I appeared on WBUR with Sharon Brody. If you missed that, you can go back and listen to that episode. It's a very fun little chat about our memories about that donut place. I do love a donut. And it's always nice when I get to be on like a mainstream media outlet, especially NPR, which was defunded this year. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of shows got canceled on NPR. A lot of people on our local NPR, BUR, who worked there forever, lost their jobs. Just a very sort of miserable start. The same week as that closed, I got my final offer to start this new job, and 2 days later, my wife was laid off of her job of 6 years, which was unexpected and very it was rough. And she was out of work for 10 months. She just started a new job this week, and although she had unemployment, which thankfully, and I was able to pick up a lot of freelance work, which again is why it was difficult for me to get ahead here with editing and writing stuff. And stand up here and there. It's been a tough, tough year. Obviously financially, but just emotionally. The stability, I think most people require stability, but when my world destabilizes at all and I can't plan stuff, I am untethered. And I started to feel that way around this time. And I think a lot of people did, just based on what was going on in the world. And I know a lot of people lost work this year, lost friends. It just seemed like a year filled with loss. And I apologize for this episode being kind of a bum out. I'm hoping that it's not a total bum out to you. I don't like to have total bum out episodes because really I did have really fun chats this year. So, but just to give you the background of kind of what was going on, while I was having those chats, and I've been trying to sort of, relax, which is difficult. So I tend to cocoon in my home. So I really try to force myself out at least once a week. So I was trying to go to like estate sales once a week just to walk around. I don't really buy much because I have too much stuff to begin with, or the thrift store or something like that, just to kind of walk around and interact with humans. So yeah, that was kind of a devastating blow, and happening when Ted was ill, and that was expensive, and everything else going on with the world. It's difficult to compartmentalize my brain to talk to you every week, which I love doing, and talk to guests every week, which I also love doing, and I think kept me sane this year to sort of have that grounding, forced interaction with like-minded people, and that's the episode on the week of the 17th, the St. Patrick's Day week. I had Dan Perry on. Danny Perry was such a huge get for me. And again, a name probably maybe a lot of people didn't know. Maybe they did, who were on this show, but who listened to the show. But he wrote the Cult Movies books, among other things, which were essential. Those are like classic Ken Reed origin story books. Those books I poured over. I made lists of every movie he covered in there and tried to see every single one. If it was on television, if I had to go 2 buses and a train to rent it. And so getting to talk to him was amazing. That was a dream come true. That's like a dream guest for me and one of my favorite episodes. And the guy couldn't have been nicer. So that was just great. He buy the books if you haven't bought those books. I legitimately reread at least the Cult Movies books every year, and I'm always surprised that there's something I either forgot about or never really picked up on before, or a movie that I hadn't seen in forever, and I went in and will go back and rewatch those movies. That's the other thing I've been doing. I've been watching a lot of movies this year, more than television so much, where this may be a nostalgia thing. This may be a desire to sort of disassociate with the current times a little bit. But in 2024, I started this where I've made playlists of every movie from 30 years ago, from 40 years ago and 30 years ago. So like every movie from 84 and 94 and every movie from 85 and 95. So I've been rewatching as many movies from 85 and 95 this year as I can. And I try to watch them. This sounds nuts. I try to watch them like around the date in that year that came out. So I have this other like running list of release dates of movies from 85 and 95, and kind of see if they hold up, if I still like them, if I'd never seen them. And that's been very interesting, because I am such a huge movie fan, that in 85, I often consider my favorite year of film, which I will still stand by. But if I had the time, I think I would do a second podcast of like, my year in movies or something, where, every week I watch the movies released that week in 1985, or this year will be 1986. So I plan to do that again this year. Maybe I'll do like maybe I'll try one of those. I'll do a pilot. How about that? I will do a pilot of one of those This Week in Movies kind of podcasts. I know I said this before with the Two Thumbs podcast that fell apart. But I'll do that for 2026. So let's say by March, I will have a first quarter of 1986 revisit of movies podcast. I don't know if it'll just be me. Maybe I'll have a guest. Maybe Rachel will do it with me. I don't know. Let me know what you think. You can email me at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com or ken@icanread.com, or if you're a patron. And again, thank you guys so much for being patrons. I know times are so tough, and the fact that you guys think I'm worthy of $1 or $5 or some of you even more than that, is amazing. And again, was so helpful this year. It was like literally paying the bills and filling the gaps in. And I cannot thank you guys enough. So least I can do is try and do like another podcast for you, at least 1 or 2 in 2026 for the patrons. That let's do that. So anyway, well, I've committed to that now. You hold me to it. Then the last week in March, I had John Easdale on, and John is the frontman behind Dramarama, and it was hooked up with me by a listener, which I thank you very much, and loved that band. He was such a cool guy, such a fan of television, classic television, hearing his experiences, his stories. What a great dude, and if you don't know Dramarama, listen to them. They're great. Also that week, the first week in April, my old friend Shane Moss came and stayed with me. I hadn't seen Shane in forever. When Shane is sort of in New England, he'll often stay with us in my guest room, which when we bought this house, I made sure I had a guest room because I'm like, comics will always need to stay with us, and it kind of never happens. But Shane does once every couple of years, and he was in town doing some podcasts and some live shows. So it was just nice to hang out with Shane. He has a new special out. I think is it a 2-part special? But look Shane Moss up, watch his stuff. He's evolved into a very different comedian than he was the last time you heard him on this show, certainly, which was 10 years ago. But also sort of a key person in my life and my stand-up career, having been someone I started with, who then was, I think, the first person from our sort of class of comedians who made it onto TV, got on Conan. And I had Mike Kaplan on again a couple weeks ago, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the year. But Mike was one of the first, but I think Shane was the first one, and he moved out to LA. Shane was very supportive when I started this show in 2015, which I talked about last year. I stayed at his place in Malibu for like 2 weeks, recorded a ton of episodes, and that was all thanks to Shane. So always nice to see Shane. And that week, speaking of old friends, the episode that week 682 was Rob Terbovsky, and Rob is another guy that I've known for 15, 20 years, who's doing so well now, and really has been for years, but he's working on Only Murders in the Building. Just a funny guy, someone who I truly, truly love, really like Rob, and he's one of my lunch buddies when I would go to LA, which I haven't been out to LA in a long time somehow. And it was great to finally get him on the show. So that was nice to catch up with Rob and talk TV and just kind of relax and be silly and stupid with a friend. So that was the first episode of April, the April Fool's episode, if you will. I don't think that's true, but kind of was. So Rob Terbovsky, that was a fun episode as well, and especially coming off the Danny Peary episode, where it was like a sort of hero of mine I've never spoken to, and then an old friend who's super talented, who I have rapport with, was kind of a nice change there. The next week I had Andrew Chanel on, and he is in the band Bandages, I believe Andrew was. That was another hookup with an old friend, punk rock guy. It was very interesting to talk to him. I did not know him prior to that, but grew up in the Midwest, I believe, to show you how much research I do on this show. But when I look back, but this is really just my brain, like what I remember just coming out the gate, coming out at you, the gate. So that was Andrew. That's a fun episode. The next week was David Klein. This is Winona Ryder's cousin. He wrote a book about called The Plus One. It was very interesting to hear his experiences. He's a writer in his own right, about sort of growing up with her. We all know I love Winona Ryder, and this is probably the closest I'll ever get to having her on the show. But he is a talent in his own right, and he's a writer, written some great stuff about mixtapes, and a huge music fan, and music plays such a huge role in his life and sort of pop culture coming of age. And again, that's another area that I don't quite get to speak about as much on this show because it's TV focused, but I have been sort of rediscovering new music again a little bit. I try to listen to WMBR 88.1, formerly WTBS, is MIT's college radio station, and they have two shows that I've listened to Monday through Friday, almost every day, literally since, I don't know, 1987, 1988. The Late Risers Club and the Breakfast of Champions, and sort of punk rock shows. And that's where I hear about new music when they play new stuff. So I have discovered some bands I really enjoyed this year that I heard for the first time on there, which is another total side tangent. But anyway, yeah, so the David Klein episode is very fun. The 15th, the day after April 14th, tax day, I met up with another old friend, my friend Dan Sheeran, who was the drummer in the band I was in high school and is now doing very well for himself. He's a lawyer out in Los Angeles, but he was home for April vacation with his kids, visiting his parents, and he had tickets to go see Nick Cave and St. Vincent. So we went to Nick Cave and St. Vincent, and again, I cannot thank my friends enough for pulling me out of the house. Like, I need people to, without people kind of being on me about stuff, I just would not leave the house. I truly wouldn't. And so I cannot thank them enough when they like begrudgingly pull me out of the house. I know that sounds stupid to be like, oh, pulling me to go to a free show for a band I like, but it's just such a weird social thing that isn't, I tend not to do. But anyway, St. Vincent, who I was very excited to see, I'd never seen live, she got ill and didn't perform, which seemed to be a last minute thing. Like, all her stuff was on stage, and then they were like, St. Vincent up here performing, and they took all her stuff off. But Nick Cave did like a 2-hour show. I had not seen Nick Cave since 2002, maybe, so like well over 20 years. Didn't miss a beat. The guy did not seem 20 years older. I don't know how he kept that energy level up. It was a really great show. I was glad that I went. I think that might be the only live music I saw in 2025, which is strange. But yeah, that was a really great time. Then next week, Matthew Brosard was on. That was a fun episode, and closed out the month with, I think, top 3, maybe my favorite episode of the year. Certainly by this point in the year, and this has been some good episodes, Chris Cluis. Again, a listener hooked me up with Chris. Just an amazing episode. So fun. The best stories. Amazing guy. Worked on so many good shows. I love talking to him. I could talk to him again. Maybe I'll have him on again in 2026. I'm sure he has more stories he could share. But Chris is the best. And also, thank you guys so much when you suggest guests, or like, you know someone and you put me in touch with them. I really appreciate it. I always try to get back to people as quickly as possible. This year's been a little bit more difficult. So if I didn't get back to you or you fell through the cracks, I apologize. Send me an email and call me a dickhead for doing so. But again, thank you for hooking me up with Chris. Chris is one of those episodes and one of those guests that I continue to tell other people the stories from that episode that he told me. And one of my all-time favorite episodes, like I would put that in the top 10, top 20 of all-time episodes, but certainly this year, love that episode that I closed out April with Chris Cluis. Chris Cluis, one of my favorites of the year, as I mentioned. Little behind the scenes here. I often do this episode, actually not often, every year, do it in chunks. So I'll usually do like the first quarter, second quarter, third and fourth, or in half hours as I'm doing this, so that I don't have to talk nonstop for an hour and a half or 2 hours. I mean, I could if I want to. I'm not saying, I'm not like, not weak or nothing I could, but anyway, so this is phase 2. If the sound's a little different, I've been messing with my setup quite a bit. My computer has been odd, and I switched mics. I was using a Blue Yeti that I got recently for the last half of the year. I've used this AKG Lyra for the last like 5 or 6 years, but then it was doing a weird thing where it would get too hot for no apparent reason. Like, I wouldn't have messed with any of the settings, and it would just kind of like on its own get too hot. And by too hot, if you're not an audio professional like me, that's like when it sort of blows out, like this sounds like the speaker's blown. But I've rejiggered stuff, and I'm back to the AKG, and it sounds pretty good to me. So if you even noticed that. Normally I wouldn't tell you this, but I think we're close personal friends. Also today, just got rid of the depression beard. It's gone. So he's back, everybody. I don't know why. I got sick of it. And I had a leak in my bathroom that I had to recock. So it's been, we had some water coming out of the ceiling. Anyway, I realized before we get into the rest of the months here, that I had not answered. I answered some of the questions in what I was talking about, which some people hadn't. We're in May, by the way, just to remind you and remind myself. But I had a great question that I hadn't addressed yet. So a listener asked if I could produce a It's a Wonderful Life or a Christmas Carol homage episode of a sitcom, what would it be? So it's Christmas, everybody, or this is the week after Christmas, so before we hit the New Year's. But I've talked about this in the show before, but those are two of my favorite sort of, not cliche, sort of structured Christmas episodes. And they're two sides of the same coin. The It's a Wonderful Life is like, hey, if you had never been born, all these people would be worse off. And the Christmas Carol is kind of like, hey, if you had never been born, all these people would be better off. But it's kind of like, hey, be a better person. It's a Wonderful Life is like, you're a good enough person. You don't need to do anything. And the Christmas Carol is like, hey, you better fix stuff because when you die, everyone's going to be super psyched. We all know people like that. But, it was a really interesting question, and I thought about this quite a bit, and I think I have it narrowed down to two shows, neither of which will be a surprise to anyone who listens to this show. The first one is just the 10 of us, and I think it should be It's a Wonderful Life. Yeah. Oh, here's my idea. We do both. Right? We do both simultaneously. So we have Graham doing an It's a Wonderful Life while simultaneously Father Hargis is doing a Christmas Carol. So that we have both sides of that coin where Father Hargis is being a dick. So he gets the Christmas Carol thing. We can have the various Lubbocks be the ghosts. I think Sherry is probably a really good Ghost of Christmas Future. I'd probably put Deb Harmon as past and maybe Cindy and Wendy together as present. That might be fun. Oh, that sounded really pervy, didn't it? Anyway, and then for Graham, I'd probably have his guardian angel be it'd be great if, obviously this isn't going to happen, but it'd be great if it was Christopher Hewitt and they could do sort of a fourth wall break about them being on after Mr. Belvedere. That would be very, very cool. That's my number one. My number two would obviously be Barney Miller. And I think it would be good to do an It's a Wonderful Life of Barney Miller. I don't think you could do the Christmas Carol one because Barney's a good dude. But an It's a Wonderful Life would be really fun. You could see where all the cops were without his sort of guidance, have something really fun where they're just, all miserable. So that's the answer to that question. And a great question. Thank you for asking it. Now I want to watch those episodes, but sadly, they don't exist. So back onto May, I ended on episode 686 here, which was Chris Cluess. Again, one of my favorite episodes and some of the best John Candy stories I've ever heard. If you haven't read Paul Meyer's book about John Candy, get it. There's a bunch of sales right now, especially. It's a great audiobook. Again, I always say for some reason, fiction I read and nonfiction I'll listen to, and it doesn't feel like cheating. But if I listen to a fiction book, it feels like a complete cheat. I have no idea why. But anyway, I've been listening to the John Candy book, and it's just as good as I had hoped. I have not watched I Like Me, the documentary. I feel like it would just really bum me out. I still haven't watched the Paul Rubens documentary either. I also feel like that would bum me out. But everybody said they're great and they're very life affirming. I'd eventually watch the Mr. Rogers one, but those two I haven't. It's been such an awful year. I haven't had the fortitude to do yet. So I'll do them at some point this year. I also remembered a couple other people that died this year. George Wendt died, who I never had on the show, but when I was going to do my second ever live one at LA Riot Comedy Festival, where I ended up having Billy West. George was one of the people who was going to do it and couldn't. Eventually, I was going to have some Cheers people on, and he couldn't end up doing it. But I talked to him, and he was such a nice dude. Lonnie Anderson passed away recently. Again, never had her on the show. But did sort of wave to her from afar because she lived next door to Sandra Curry. So that was kind of interesting. She was like, oh, this is my neighbor, Lonnie Anderson. And I'm sure there'll be other people that I remember as we go on here. But yeah, definitely some, they're older, and it's always a shock because we watch them on these shows from 40 years ago, and that's how we see them. And, we don't see them as elderly people. At least I don't. Anyway, speaking of non-elderly people, non-elderly people. I'm looking at my calendar, and this is why I said pee-pee. I swear, I'm not making this up. This is why I said PP. So Pete, my elderly dog, speaking of elderly, he is 13. He was 12 last year. He has quite bad arthritis. And we get him this monthly injection of a drug called Librela. That's pretty amazing. They're not sponsoring me. It's $99 a month, worth every penny. He's like a puppy the day after, although, he's slowing down a little now. But essentially what the vet told me is that after a certain age, and this is apparently true in humans as well, your nerve cells are the only things that regenerate in your joints. So it's not that you're injured, you're just feeling pain more. So what this does is block the nerve cells from regenerating there. And it was like instant. But I bring it up because on my calendar once a month, I have Pete Librela, and I call Pete Pee-Pee sometimes. But funnily enough, I think January was the first month that he got the Librela shot, and I had put Pete Librela in my calendar. And so in addition to like the episodes coming out in my calendar, I also have, when I'm recording with people. And I'm like, Sunday, who the hell is Pete Librela? And I was like looking on IMDb for Pete Librela, seeing if there was like a book that was coming out by a guy named Pete Librela. And then after about literally an hour, I was like, I am the dumbest person on earth. That is my dog Pete and his medication Librela. So Pete Librela, maybe if I get incredibly famous and I need to check into hotels under assume names, it'll be Pete Librela. That's a pretty good one. Well, now I told you guys, but you can come stalk me at the hotel. That's fine. So on the 5th of May that week, why did I almost start singing a fifth of Beethoven, the disco Beethoven? Have you noticed my brain is like extra scattered? I think part of it is being 45. Part of it is the awful year and everything going on. And part of it is the last 5 years. That's going to be my excuse. I do get an annual physical and I'm in fine health, apparently. But that week I had Ahmed Khalafan, and he is a very funny guy. I did not know him before. I get pitched a lot of people who have albums out, especially comics, through various PR agencies. And so many people have put out albums on Blonde Medicine, which is super fun. My friend, old friend, Jessica, Moses is one of the people in charge over there, and they really are supporting comedy, putting out tons of albums and specials. Not mine. Maybe if I asked, they'd work with me. I don't know. I do have 2 whole new hours of comedy that I meant to put out on an album and didn't, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. It's a lot of work and money. But anyway, he had an album out. That episode, he's literally on the phone. We couldn't work out the Riverside FM for some reason. It wasn't working on his end, so he's on the phone. So that's a phoner, which is weird. It sounded like old school radio. But an interesting guy, really funny guy. Check out his his album, and his. He might have a podcast. I don't know. Maybe he should. The week after that was Brian Kelb, and he is an old school Ken Reed fan from back in the album days when I had punk rock albums. And he does a NASCAR podcast. He's a thrift shopper, a good dude. I love that he reached out. I loved connecting with him and having him on the show. I do not know anything about, nor do I care much about NASCAR, but when I went and listened to his show, I really enjoyed it. So check his out as well, if you missed that one. The next week was Mangesh Hedekuder, and Mangesh, or Mango, he is kind of a big get. I mean, it was kind of amazing that he did my show. He's a bigwig in the podcasting world, and in the sort of humor world, and does real podcasts on networks. He has his own network, and could not have been nicer. Just the nicest guy, and I think, what's his thing called? Part-Time Genius, his podcast. After he was on the show, he did a little sort of TV guidance counselor inspired episode about the sort of history of TV Guide, which is really great. I put a link to it in that show description. If you can't find it, let me know. But it's a fun little adjunct for me of the sort of history of the pre-national and the sort of just how TV and some cool, fun, weird facts about TV Guide for regular listeners of for regular listeners of his show. It's not an adjunct to my show. It's probably the first time they've ever heard of my show, and some of them maybe the first time they've heard of TV Guide. But it was incredibly nice of him to have done that and put that on their show, and I really appreciated that, and it was great to talk to him. And I closed May out with Andy Woodhull. That was a very fun episode as well. A lot of comics this year, as I said. A lot of people I didn't know. it was sort of a weird mix of old friends and people who were completely new to me, that I was sort of pitched and that I ended up really enjoying, when I checked out their stuff. So that was one of them. On to June 2025. This month, oh boy. So this month, this is the month I turned 45. Also on the 2nd of this month, earlier in the year, as I said, there was a lot of dog stuff. Ted, my poodle, who is just turned 10 this week. He was diagnosed with a heart murmur, which immediately, because it's me, immediately sent me on a spiral, because he's my best bud. I love him so much. He's my cuddle buddy. I suffer from night terrors and panic attacks, if you didn't know. And Ted is kind of always my calming influence. So I was beside myself. So we had to go to a dog cardiologist, which is a thing. And they were very good. They did a ton of tests. It did cost $2,000 that I didn't quite have. But of course I'm going to pay it because it's Ted. And there was some hardening of one of his valves, but they gave him some medication. So he has meds twice a day. Also another $200 a month, in addition to Pete's $100 a month. And then we were going to come back in a few months to check if he progressed. And I won't wait till we go through the year here. He's doing very well. There's been improvement. He has no symptoms. So hopefully Ted will be with me for a long time to come. But that was a little bit scary, because it's Ted, you know. You rarely hear Ted barking in the background. It's almost always Pete and Larry. Or if you hear Rachel in the background shushing anyone or asking what's in their mouth, it's usually Larry. Occasionally Ted, if like they're all going, like the mailman's here or something, he'll start howling, which is very strange. But anyway, so that was at the beginning of the month and was very distracting. But I started the month off with a really great guest, Jason Bailey, who is such a good writer. Felt a real kinship with him and all the stuff he's done. It was really great to sit and talk to him. And especially since he was promoting his book, like all over NPR and like, you know, legit outlets. And then on my show too, which was nice. In that week, as I had mentioned, I've been watching movies from 30 years ago, 40 years ago. On the 4th in 1990s, and Total Recall came out. So I watched that week. And on the 6th is when Goonies came out in 1985. So I did watch that. And I was reminded that it was 10 years ago in June 2015, which I mentioned in last year's 2015 year in review. I did that screening of Goonies in Worcester with Sean Astin, which is, I can't believe it's 10 years ago. I'm also kind of shocked that it happened at all, because that's super cool. And so I kind of looked it up, and I found out that this really cool old Art Deco sort of town hall theater that we did the show in Worcester literally was abandoned like a year or two after we did that thing, and is sat rotting for the last 8 years. There's like all these urban explorer abandoned property YouTube channels that have gone there, which I found so depressing. I mean, I'm already susceptible to that stuff anyway, but man, was that depressing. But then the next week, the second week in June, was the 8th anniversary of when we got Larry. Larry's birthday's in January, so next month he will be 9. But we got him on June 10th of 2017, and he's a pain in the ass. But man, oh man, has he improved the quality of my life. I love that guy. He's too smart and he's annoying, but he's the best. In that week, I had Owen Hammer on the show, and Owen is awesome. Owen does these very in-depth sort of analyses of a lot of David Lynch stuff, but not exclusively David Lynch stuff, on YouTube, and I really loved his videos. And he also is a comic writer. He's written a great, very fun sort of satirical comic book about sort of a Frankenstein type zombie that's very good. And I had Owen on, and we talked about the week that Twin Peaks premiered, which is a fun episode. And then Owen actually, I always offer the video of the show to my guests. I think I mentioned this. Riverside FM records the video in 4K. I never use it. I've put out videos here and there. No one seems to care or like it. The patrons don't seem to care. But I always offer it to my guests because, you know, some of them have Patreons, they have YouTube channels, they're welcome to use it. So Owen took me up on it, and he edited together like a 45-minute episode of like just us talking about Twin Peaks and put that on his YouTube channel. So if you want to see us talk about that, that's there. That's that's a fun chat. He edited in clips and a whole bunch of stuff. So it's a cool little chat there. But that episode's fun. I also went to the dentist that day. That was one of my 6-month checkups. And I only bring it up because this second chunk of stuff I'm recording, I will have to stop in a few minutes because I have to go to the dentist today. Because it was almost exactly 6 months ago. But also that week, Movies from 85, The Stuff came out, which I have one of the screen-used stuff containers. I'm looking at it right now in my office. And that's a fun movie. Came out in a really good 4K UHD physical DVD this year. And in 1990, we got Dick Tracy and Gremlins 2. I didn't rewatch Dick Tracy and Gremlins 2. I watched Dick Tracy in 2020 as like a 30th anniversary, and it's bad. It's creepy and weird. It looks cool, but it's weird. What a weird one. The next week, we had Jeremy Alder on. Again, another comedian I didn't know, but was very happy to be introduced to, because really funny guy, really fascinating story. Someone whose life experience is so much different from mine, which is one of the things that I really like exploring on this show, where we do have overlap in the things we watched. Or someone who's a similar age to me who's completely oblivious to the things that we watch for various reasons, be it sort of religion or growing up in a different country or whatever it is. It's always kind of fascinating to look back on that stuff. And that was one of those episodes that I think really illustrated that well. Movies that came out that week, I had Return to Oz in 1985, which I did rewatch, and it is just as terrifying as it was then. What an episode. The only children's movie featuring shock treatment, maybe? Is it? I don't know. You tell me. The next week I had Joel Thurm on, and Joel is one of those old Hollywood stories episodes that was so good. He wrote a book a couple years ago. He was the casting director in the 70s and 80s and cast like every show you can imagine. Really funny stories. Just such a good repository. Is that the word I'm looking for? He is a cornucopia of Hollywood stories, and television as we know it, and especially the television that the listeners of this show love, would not exist or be the same without Joel. So that was a very fun episode. I highly recommend his book and checking that episode out in general, because it's great. The next week, the final week in June. Oh, what did I do on my birthday this year? You know what? I don't even remember. The 28th. Normally what I'll do, I probably got donuts or something. Normally I'll go to like an arcade and get like a turkey dinner, kind of lunch somewhere. I think I got a North Shore beef. That's been my go-to comfort food this year. I've been eating like almost no meat generally for the last few years, but for some reason this year, my particular brand of seeking comfort in food has been the nostalgia of the North Shore beef sandwich, which actually Josh Gondelman, about a month or two ago, did a great little video on YouTube with WGBH, PBS station and NPR station, kind of going to various North Shore beef restaurants and reviewing them. And it's worth a watch. I reposted it on social media. It's good, although he doesn't go to my favorites. Favorite of which being Billy's Roast Beef and Seafood in Wakefield, Mass. The classic. So yeah, I think I got that and just hung around. Again, we're kind of not spending much money this year. And yeah, maybe next year I'll do a big birthday blowout. I don't know. I probably won't. I really haven't done one in about 10 years. Yeah. But the first episode I did in July, after my birthday, was with Kendall Phillips, an awesome author. Found out he was a listener to the show. I reached out to him because I really love his books. And again, I've been in a real movie mindset this year. And I've read all his books about horror and horror fiction, horror movies. And he was like, oh no, I listened to the show. I would love to do it. So that was really cool. That has happened more than once, strangely, which just shocks me because I'm always like, people listen to the show. I don't mean to insult you. You're listening right now, if you have gotten this far. But yeah, so that was really fun, and I love talking horror, and I love talking academic when I can, and his books are incredibly good. I noticed they're all on sale if you do ebooks, and I know we shouldn't really give Amazon tons of money, but a lot of his books were on sale, like $1.99, $2.99 for digital books this week, as was Nell Scovell's book, which is a must-read, and, pick those up if you haven't. It does help, and, you get a good book for 99 cents, $1.99. Normally I would recommend people go get a used copy of books because we have too many physical things in the world and we're all dying, and so is the world. And I don't want to give Amazon any money, but for ebooks, especially people who I'm friends with and who I would like to see succeed and get a little bit of scratch for the work they've done. Go buy their ebook. And then if you really love the ebook, buy a new copy of the physical copy if you want to contribute to what they're doing. But anyway, so his books are on sale. So, or they were, but check it out and let me know if they're not, but buy them if you want. And then we go into July, the long, hot summer. And then we reach July. So we've gotten through half the year already. Hopefully you're still with me. We got another 6 months here, the back half of the year. This year I thought would completely crawl by, and if anything, I think it went by too fast. I just felt like I didn't have enough time to properly deal with everything and address everything. Like, it seemed like it was exponentially going faster, like snowballing. I don't know if you guys felt that, but it was kind of my vibe. Anyway, we kick off July with, this was great. Glenn Rubenstein on the show. Glenn's a guy that I've known for years and years and years and years. Been super supportive of the show. Just a huge help to the show and someone I admire. And it was amazing to have him on the show. And it was just as good as I hoped it would be. Long episode, but a super fun episode. I hope you check that one out. The next week I had Steve Skulk Pasika. I totally forget how I pronounce his name. It's Greek. This was an interesting guy. We kind of come from somewhat similar worlds in the sort of punk rockish music scene and then into comedy. He is doing a web series using generative AI, which my stance on. I'm not a huge fan of it at all. But I think we had a really interesting, productive, respectful conversation about it. So that was a fun one. Didn't get contentious at all. It was just a good chat. That weekend I had some shows with Todd Barry. I was up in Maine. I was up at Vinegar Hill Music Theater up in Maine. We've done that one. I think this was the 4th time we did it, up in Arundel. Also hit up a really good antique mall there. I didn't buy anything, but they had some really cool, fun stuff there. If you follow me on Instagram, you can tell when I've actually left the house, because I end up posting a bunch of weird stuff from thrift stores and antique malls. And actually, so I got a new phone in July. I got a free upgrade, and I got a Pixel 10 Pro Fold. So it's the one that unfolds into like a whole like a tablet, and I read so much, especially in bed. It was in my mold now. My eyes are bad. They're not that bad, but so it was great. I love it. Read a lot of comics, and it's kind of like having what opens up to like the size of like a paperback book, and it's been great. I've been reading a ton more. I bring it up because the other thing is, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll notice like between the hours of 8 and 10 p.m., I'll often post screenshots of panels from old weird comics. And that's because I'm reading them in bed on my phone. So there you go with that. And side note, in the continuing theme of everything kind of breaking this year, about it was probably October, my phone stopped working properly. Like the front screen wasn't working, and when you unfold it and all this stuff, and I thought it was just a software thing. So I was on the phone for hours with Verizon. They're like, we're going to send you a new one because it's under warranty. Then I got a call back. I was like, no, you have to go to a iFix You Broke or whatever store to look at it first. And all of them are, the closest one was 45 minutes away from me. The other one was in like Manchester, Connecticut. So I'm like, all right, fine. I'll go do the one that's closest to me. And I had to make an appointment. And the guy's like, they're not open on weekends. So I had to take a day off from work. So I take the day after Thanksgiving off from work, and I drive down to this place and for my appointment. And there's a big close sign on the door. And then under that, it says, if Verizon made an appointment with you, we told them we'd be closed this day. So, talk to them. And I was getting like reminder text, like your appointment is for, so now I haven't gone back. I think I kind of fixed it. I did like a software update thing, but that was just a nice little side quest of misery that I felt this week. But I love the phone. I mean, other than that, it's great. Anyway, second to last week in July, I had Matt Manjaridis, and he, another Greek name, local guy, does the current Joe Bob Briggs show on Shudder. This year, I think I did the same issue of TV Guide with 3 different people. My favorite issue of all time, the Halloween issue 1990. Although super deep cut, I scanned different regional versions of them, which are mostly the same, but not quite. Kendall Phillips did it. Matt did it. I think I had maybe one more person. And I think in the past, 2 people have done it. I used to really, really, really police if people picked the same issue. I kind of don't now. Let me know if that's annoying. I feel like it's a different conversation with every person, and it kind of is fine. I also try to at least separate them out so that it's been a while since you've looked at that issue. It also saves me having to scan another issue. That's not the main reason, but that is a helpful part as well. But if that's like no one said anything, if it's super annoying, let me know. I will police that better. And then the final episode of the month, I had Mike, Dick, and Scott Aloha from Aloha. Jesus Christ, Aloha. Oh my God. From the First 7-Inch Club podcast. And I was hooked up with them through my previous month's guest, or 2 months before that, actually. It was Brian Kelb. And they do a really fun podcast. They're old hardcore punk rock guys who actually had known me previously, although I didn't know it, through Matt Kona, who's been on the show, and a bunch of stuff. Their podcast is really great, and they often go on completely unrelated to hardcore tangents about old television, and it's just a very good... it was a good mix, what's the word I want to say? A good fit. That's the word I'm looking for. My words are completely failing me this year. I don't know if anyone else has been having that. I definitely have been not as sharp as I once was. Again, I don't know if this is middle age or if this is just the way things are now, because I've never been middle-aged before. So, who knows? But then we go into August. So August, I had a bunch of really fun episodes as well. I can't believe how this was August already. Wow. The first one was my 700th episode, although I think it's like 720 because this one's 769. But someone I didn't know previously, Shanna Christmas, and she's very funny, has a really good special. Really love talking to her. Again, her background is so much different than mine, having grown up in Las Vegas, and very, very interesting. I really enjoyed that one there. Also that week, I recorded the catered quiz with my guest from a couple weeks ago, Rick Katchke, and that aired, I think, a week after that. So if you missed that, check out the catered quiz. And on the Sunday of August 3rd, Matt Kirshen, former guest of the show, Matt Kirshen, great dude, had me open for him at Laugh Boston. So I dropped in, did a set there, did about a 20-minute set, which I got a good tape of if you want to see it. I can send you a link. I think I posted it on the Patreon. I think I did. People seem to like it. So that was some new stuff. And Matt's such an awesome dude. And I got to hang out with Matt, talk to him. And then I think 2 weeks later or a week later, I was on the Probably Science podcast with him and some other good dudes. Andy Wood, who I should have on the show, by the way. I'm writing that down. I need to reach out to Andy about doing the show. But yeah, that was a fun week and a very fun set, I will say. The next week, this was the week of August 11th, I had Will Daly on the show, and Will was a guy somehow I never met, but we have like a zillion mutual friends. He is a Boston-based musician, and really love talking to him. We talked a lot about sort of alternative methods of distributing art. It related to TV. But very, very interesting guy, and he sort of had some very experiential ways to experience his music for well thought out reasons. This is a music heavy month, actually. I say that when it's just Will Dailey. Oh, no, I guess Mike and Scott are music adjacent. Then the next week, I'm meeting Jim Tews, who I've known for years and years. It was great to have Jim on the show. There's these people who I'm like, oh, yeah, I knew that guy forever. Let's have him on the show. And Jim had a new special out, and that was, again, really fun conversation and a great chance to catch up with him. And then it's a music episode again, I suppose. On the 25th, I had Dr. Robert J. Fitzgerald, who wrote a book about Reagan and hardcore punk rock in the 1980s, sort of tangentially related to stuff on this show. But to me, Ronald Reagan is sort of the first pop culture TV president in a lot of ways, and comes up on the show a lot. That sort of era comes up a lot. His book is fantastic. He's got a book about the band Naked Raygun coming out soon, which I was interviewed for. So we'll see if any of my just incredible insights make it into that book or not. But what a good dude. That was a fun episode. I got great feedback on that episode, actually. Weirdly, that episode I might have gotten the most messages from listeners, all positive, this year, and of people going out and buying this book. Robert told me he got like a big spike in book sales. So that was nice. That's always my goal. When I have someone who's written a book that I particularly like, and I think you guys would like, it's always great when the listeners are excited, go out and get the book and enjoy it. And it's helpful to the person for doing the show. I can't pay people for being on the show. So like all I can offer is, hey, you'll have fun and maybe you'll get some eyes on whatever the thing you're working on is. So in that instance, that was the case. But I love his book. And then, it's a music guest again. When we get into September, Cynthia Von Bueller was on, and Cynthia is an old school Boston musician person, who hasn't been here in years and years and years, but is an incredibly successful illustrator and writer. Minky Woodcock. Yeah, Minky Woodcock is her sort of detective-y, pulpy character. There's a new book out called Girl Called Cthulhu. That's very good. And it was nice to catch up with her. I hadn't seen her or talked to her in years, so that was pretty great. Then we get into September. Let's get here. September. Let's see, where are we? Did Probably Science, Pete got a Labrella shot. The 10th, the second week of September, I had Josh Fidem on. And Josh, again, it took like 3 years for us to be able to find time to get on the show. But this, again, long one. Also really fun because he picked a 1950s issue. And 1950s issues don't come up as often as I'd like them to on the show. Although this year we got several with people who were not of the age group to pick a 1950s issue, but did pick a 1950s issue. Josh being one of them. We share a mutual love for film noir, although he is way more into it than I am and knows way more than I do. But that was a really fun episode. And a long one, too. That was a very long, fun episode. Also that week on September 11th, I went to see Sparks with my friend Steve and his wife and Rachel. And I had seen them before. If you're unfamiliar with Sparks, get familiar with them. Edgar Wright made a great documentary about them. But I saw them, I don't know, maybe 2 years ago at the Wilbur Theater. It was a good show, but this was great. They played for like 2.5 hours, and these guys are in their 80s. And we had great seats. It was just really, really, really good show. Again, a friend pulled me out of the house. I'm making the mime pulling a rope hand gesture. Is that an official thing? Do you guys know what what hand gesture I'm doing? Maybe you do. Anyway, that was September 11th. That was a lot of fun. And then the next week, this is another one of my favorite episodes of the year. And again, a guest recommended by a listener, local talent done good, Bob Perlow. This is a super fun episode. If you have not read Bob's book, read it. Bob is a Rhode Islander by birth. Is that Rhode Islander by birth? Warm-up comic by choice. He kind of invented what we think of as modern day warm-up comics, and a billion fun stories. He's also a Night of the Comet. Continuing my cast members of Night of the Comet run on this show. I think that's 3. We up to 3? Yeah, at least 3. So Bob Perlow, probably easily my top 3 favorite episodes of the year by far. Then on the 20th of September, I did my friend Clay, who's been on the show, you know, Clay Furno, his 50th birthday party, performed at the Middle East, did some stand-up, and I can't believe that I know people who are in their 50s. I know listenership is older than that, but man, what a weird... I just think of people who were in their 50s when I was a kid, and they don't seem like the people I know now that are in their 50s. And again, maybe this is just middle age. I don't know. But that's where we're at. So that was super fun. And the day after that, I went down to Connecticut for Connecticut Horror Fest to hang out with some friends down there. Hung out with my good friend Jules Shepard, who was in Return of the Living Dead. Jules, one of the greatest human beings I've ever met in my life. And speaking of fascinating stories, my God, her book, If I'm So Famous, How Come Nobody Knows Who I Am, is a must read. She occasionally, it's out of print, but she occasionally gets copies and sells them at the shows, and just super smart, great writer. What a life she lives. And I always love chatting with Jewel and getting to see Jewel. So she's rarely on the East Coast. So it was great to go down there. They were doing a Return of the Living Dead cast reunion. So I went down and saw all those guys and hung out with Jewel and saw John Cusack and, you know, all that kind of fun stuff. So that was Connecticut. That week also was Bobby Dolan, who I didn't know previously. Fun guy. That was a really fun episode. Again, that was a guy who was pitched to me because he had some stuff coming out, and I was happy to have met him and talked to him on the show. The next week, this is probably my number 2, I'm guessing, episode of the year, behind Chris Cluess, maybe tied. Hart Hansen. So Hart, the best dude. Hart is used to be a Canadian. If you heard the episode, you know what that means. Created the show Bones, wrote on a ton of stuff. Could not be a nicer guy. I've been trying to get him on the show for a long time. He is like an elite showrunner and a great novelist, and just what a good dude. And I loved doing that episode. That was so much fun for me. And that's, again, one of those ones where I really get to talk to somebody who I admire and whose work is so good, but who's so down to earth and just down to earth. So it's just, what a good dude. That was such a fun episode. And then that week also, I had Ted's recheck with the cardiologist for another $2,000. But that's when they told us that he was doing well. He was responding very well to the medication. So I was so relieved. So like overall, that was just a good week. That last week of September, first week of October, because, that was a great week, a great episode with Hart, and then good news with Ted. We go further into October with Zechariah Durr, former horror movie host, and we talked some horror there. That was a fun one. And the next week I had Denise Winkleman, who again was someone I didn't know previous to that. They were pitched to me. They had a special out, and it was great. I had such a good time talking to her. That was a very fun one. Then the next week, again, another person pitched to me who I was unfamiliar with, but what a fascinating guy. Fabrizio Capano. This guy, he grew up in South America, and I always love the episodes when someone grew up not in America, because I get to hear their experience and about television I'd never heard of before and stuff to check out. And he's such a film fan, smart guy, and his experience is so interesting. I had a huge list of things to go and read and watch. So really, really good. That was a fun one for me. Then on Halloween, on the 29th, we released my episode with David Weiner, and David has directed the In Search of Darkness documentaries. So good. Again, a lot of people on those documentaries on my show, and we talk Halloween, literally the movie Halloween. He picked a week that is the television premiere of the movie Halloween, and how important that was to him, and that was a great week. I swear I'm not just like barreling through the rest of the year. Building up momentum here, guys. We've been here. How long we been here now? Like over an hour. So hopefully you're still with me here. I'm losing my voice a little bit, but I do it for you. I do it for you, everybody. So we're into November. So last month, we started off with Eric Miller. That was a very fun episode. Again, a horror guy, a writer, who I didn't know that well and was happy to meet and talk to about all those things, horror stuff, the structure of stories. I say it all the time, but it's so fun to meet like-minded people I did not know before. That sounds stupid, but it really is. And I expand my experience. I don't know, my knowledge base. I don't know what I'm talking about anymore, guys. But that's, yeah. November also kind of sucked because the other thing I had to get fixed, well, two things. I replaced a fan in my bathroom, which I did myself, which felt very empowering. But my car, so here's a little car story. I had a 2014 Nissan Rogue. 2020, February 2020, before the pandemic really hit in full effect, I was driving home from my office, and a kid and when I say kid, I mean the Boston kid, so he's probably 20, kid in a huge Ford F-150 was texting, rammed my car, completely totaled my car. Physically, I was mostly all right. The accident really messed with me for a while. In combination with the pandemic and all that kind of stuff, but whether I realized it or not. But anyway, I got a new car because my car got totaled, and it wasn't a new car, but it was new to me, and it was a 2015 Nissan Murano Platinum, which is like their high-end one. I love the car; it's very good, great car, and I proceeded to almost never drive it because the pandemic hit. So I barely drive this car to this day. So it was 5 years old when I got it, but it had like 10,000 miles, and it was 10 years old this year. And again, aside from when I'm like doing a run of shows with Todd on the road, or, hitting up conventions in Connecticut, like I rarely drive. I drive maybe once a week if I force myself out. So there's not a lot of miles on this car. But in November, the battery died, which isn't that unusual. 10 years for an original battery in a car is actually unusual. So, replace the battery. Then it started doing weird stuff. I had a weird thing where the sunroof opened like on its own and then would not shut. So I made an appointment at the dealership. Well, I had to go get a inspection sticker, and it didn't pass because there was like a check engine light stuff. And the guy's like, I can't fix this. You got to go to your dealership. So anyway, I made an appointment at the dealership, which took 2 weeks. And so for 2 weeks, I had an open sunroof, and I had to have like a tarp because it was raining. And finally bring it into the place in November, and they fixed it, and it cost me $6,500. So that was another more than a few grand that I didn't have. Dangerously approaching the trade-in value of the car, but I haven't had a car payment on that thing since 2022. So I figured I'm already ahead. If I get another year or two out of this car, worth it. So, and I like the car. So yeah, but that was just another annoying, stressful thing. And then Rachel started a new job at the end of the month. So it worked out. It worked out, but it was very stressful. Anyway, so yeah, then the third week in November, Mary Houlihan was on the show. And again, I didn't know Mary before. She has a great podcast now. Really funny, really unique voice. Like stylistically, not like the timbre of her voice, although it is relatively unique. In that week, I did a couple of shows with Janine Garofalo, which is always such a highlight for me of a year when I get to do shows with Janine. And they've been usually fairly far apart, but she was here just last year. So doing 2 years in a row of shows with Janine is so great. And I just love hanging out with her. I cannot believe I know her. It's very strange to me that I know any of these people, let alone that I get to work with them. It's very strange. The week before that, Dana Gould was in town, and I get to hang out with Dana, and these are like my comedy heroes that I watched growing up, and I call them friends, and they talk to me like I'm a peer, which is very strange to me because it's that shouldn't be. I'm just some idiot. Speaking of some idiot, after Mary Houlihan, Mike Kaplan. I'm kidding, Mike Kaplan. Mike Kaplan's on the show for the third time. Hadn't talked to Mike in a bit. He's in New York. I haven't been down there in forever. But he had a special coming out. So Mike reached out and we got to catch up. And that's a very fun episode as well. Again, Always love catching up with people, and Mike is such a good dude. The next week was Jason Clem and Dan Go Miller. Dan was not scheduled to be on originally, and Jason we had to reschedule. I think I was sick or something, or he was sick. Someone was sick. But it ended up working out better because his comedy partner, Dan, was available. So we did an episode with two people there. Very fun. We did another 50s issue, so that's at least 2 for this year, which might be a record. I don't actually know if that's a record. But that was Thanksgiving week. Love that episode with those guys. That was also the whole week of the phone fix fiasco. That's good alliteration. The phone fix fiasco might be a name of something, but I don't know what. I'm going to write that down. Phone fix fiasco. Let's see if I can come up with something for that. Anyway, then we get into December. So it's this month. We're first week of December. I got 3 shows with Todd Barry. So that was 4 weeks ago. We did Portsmouth, New Hampshire, venue we've done before, super fun show. Then went to MGM Springfield, the casino, not my scene, really, a casino. And we were there for 2 days because it's like a 3-ish hour drive for me. So I couldn't come home after, but I did some good thrifting during the day, the other day, and the shows are fine. Casinos, again, not my scene, but man, that can be some depressing stuff. I don't sleep well in hotels either. So I was up at 7 a.m. and I walked down to the casino floor because there's free coffee. And there were people who had clearly been on the slot machines all night or and they just looked like it. And I swear to God, they were kind of spread out all throughout the casino. And more than one of them was literally pushing the button and just going, oh, fuck. Come on. Oh, it was just so sad and depressing. There were Christmas decorations up and whatever, but the shows are fine. I had fun with the shows. So that was that week. And that week I had Jack Lawler on the show. You remember this? It was 3 weeks ago. Again, didn't know Jack, but was introduced to him by being pitched to me because he had some stuff coming out, and that was very fun. We had Ben Katzner the week after that. Again, didn't know, but really enjoyed his comedy. He's also buddies with Josh Gondelman. He did open for him when Josh was out in the Midwest. He has an album and a special out that's really great. 2 weeks ago was Rick, as I mentioned, from the Catered Quiz. Last week was Douglas Whittick. That was a very fun episode for the Christmas week. We looked at the Rosie O'Donnell covered issue with the specials there. And I also guested on the Big Dumb Monsters podcast, talking about Friday the 13th Part 4. Which in hindsight, the best Friday the 13th, I think. That's up on YouTube if you want to watch that. It was streaming live and the whole thing is there. And then here we are, New Year's Eve week. So I'll be getting some Chinese food, probably watching some movies, absolutely be watching the Pete and Pete New Year's Eve episode because that has to happen every year. Rock and Roll Nightmare, we still watch every year on New Year's Eve for reasons that have been lost in the sands of time. I don't remember. What do you watch on New Year's Eve? I mentioned it before, but I hate going out. I mean, especially now, but my whole life I hate going out on New Year's Eve. It's cold. Everybody's drunk. It's not fun. There's weird expectations. I've probably left the house on New Year's Eve maybe 3 times or 4 times. I remember the New Year's Eve, 1999. We played a show, so I was out then. That was 98 into 99. 99 into 2000, I was at the Middle East downstairs with Man or Astro Man. And when I came up, I expected Y2K stuff to happen. That didn't happen. A couple times as a kid, I probably went into Boston's First Night, which is a weird celebration where they have ice sculptures and puppets and people on stilts dancing, and your ticket in is a button. I believe they still do it, but it's always so friggin' cold. Although probably not now because of climate change. I say this in end of December and it's 60 degrees here in Boston today, which is disturbing and incredibly windy. But you're not looking at me for weather reports. I'm trying to think of other New Year's Eves I've been out. That's kind of it. I guess the Bosstones did a show one night. Maybe that was 97. I think I was out on New Year's Eve. But every other New Year's Eve, I recall ringing in it at home or, when I was under 10 at my grandparents' house. So it's just like, it's a night to sit in and have Chinese food. And, you know, I did used to watch whatever New Year's special was on, watch the Twilight Zone, get my Twilight Zone sweater on. And I'll probably still Pete and Twilight Zone and Chinese food. That's my plan. I recommend it. Works for me. There's also some great YouTubers who have recreated, with commercials and everything, the TV Land and Nick at Night broadcasts from like Christmas and New Year's from various years. So those are always a fun watch too. They've sort of curated the experience, and get a sleeping bag, get on the floor, you know, watch those things. We go into 2026, guys. Year 13 of the show, still going. Like the Energizer Bunny. You guys are still here. We lost some people this year. We'll lose some people in 2026, and it's always sad, but I'm grateful to know them. I'm grateful to know you, and I cannot thank you guys enough for listening to the show. It has been a linchpin of stability in a world of craziness, and I hope you get something out of listening to the show as well. I assume you do, because while it's not like you get paid to listen to this, or if you are, let me know. I might ask for a cut. Nothing big, like 10%. But next week, we kick off 2026 with a brand new episode. So Happy New Year to you. I hope I see you then for that brand new episode of TV Guidance Counselor.
Looks like you got some kind of alternate universe in there or something.